you guys are by the door, if you do me a favor, once again, close the doors, grab anybody that's in there. We got a great presentation coming up right now. It's round 2 this morning. Hails from all the way from Canada. Come on in, guys. Let's sit down. Oh, we can take pictures. That's perfect. You guys do that right during the break. We're here all day. Here all day. Go ahead and grab your seats. So how many of you guys would like to see 10x growth in your business over the next 12 months? Yeah, I got a couple double hands up. I do. I personally do. And I'm going to be sitting in the back running around, but I'm going to be paying attention to this presentation as well. We got Jeff Tomlin from Vendasta here. They do white label services to media agencies and local consultants and agencies just like you guys. You are his customer. He wants to help you guys grow because when you grow, his business grows, and he wants to see you guys successful. So we're going to have Jeff Tomlin come up right now. He came all the way down from Saskatchewan, Canada, to discuss the reports and the research they've done on what makes an agency thrive or die. He's going to show you guys how to get that 10x growth in your agency. So come on up, Jeff Tomlin.
All right. Everyone hear me? All right. This thing's on. First off, I want to say thanks a lot to all the organizers of the event. This is a fantastic event. I'm having a great time here, and I've loved interacting with everybody. Love the venue, too. How about this hotel, hey? I love the volumizing shampoo that they have in the rooms. I think it's working for me. So, my name's Jeff Tomlin. I'm one of the co-founders and the vice president of marketing for Vendasta Technologies. We are all the way up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, and like the introduction, this talk is about some research that we did and trying to figure out what's the difference between agencies that are really thriving and agencies that are failing to grow in this space. And I'll give you a little bit of background in a bit here on how we got onto this. But first, I thought we should just introduce each other because I don't know how many Canadians that you guys have speaking at these events. So first off, this is our home base, I'm proud to say, in sunny Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. We've got about 100 people in the room. We sell a little bit about what Vendasta does. We have a white label platform that sells reputation and presence management tools to the industry that we've been doing since about 2012. About 150,000 plus, closer to 200,000 now, SMBs are on our system through our channel partners. And being a proud Canadian and proud of where we're from, this is a little snapshot of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. About 300,000 people, about 5-hour drive straight north of the North Dakota-Montana border. Yeah! And so, of course, like any good Canadian likes promoting our country, I thought I'd tell you a couple things that you may not know about Canada. So, we have 15,500 polar bears in Canada, which is about 2/3 of all the polar bears in the world. We have 20% of the world's fresh water supply, and Saskatchewan, my province, is larger than the state of Texas and has about 100,000 lakes in it. So 80% of the alcohol consumed in Canada is beer. We're a beer drinking nation. The largest beaver dam was almost 1 kilometer long, found in northern Alberta, and our $100 bills smell like maple. And it's true. A couple other really quick things about Canada before we get into this presentation, because first off, hockey really is the only game. We are a hockey nation. Yeah, and when we won 2 gold medals in the Winter Olympics, we pretty much felt like we won the Olympics. Curling is actually a game. We actually do this, and we dress like it. And it's the only game that I know where the winners always buy the losers a round of drinks when they're done. And we have our own brand of football up there. It's called Canadian football. A little bit different than your game. We have 3 downs instead of 4 downs. We have 12 players in the field. Now, we have a bit of an inferiority complex with our game because we don't have the big names. We don't have the big crowds that you guys have. We don't have the big salaries. This is an average salary of a Canadian football player. We don't have the Peyton Mannings, the RG3s, and the Tom Bradys that you have down here. So we do have an inferiority complex, but there are a couple things that we do like to brag about. Namely, we've got bigger balls and a longer field. And you got to go with what you got, right? So we'd like to talk about that. So, how did we get onto this topic? of creating a 10x change. So Vendasta is a software development company, and we, being a pure white label provider, we only make money when our channel partners make money. And we noticed that there was a great disparity in the people that we were working with. And we sat down and we said, we really have to figure out why some of them are thriving and some are failing to grow. And what can we do to impact that? And we were sitting down one day in a prioritization meeting. One thing you find about building software is that no matter how much work you do, you never get closer to being done. Your to-do list just gets longer and longer and longer. And one day we were faced with a backlog of work that had 2,314 issues in the backlog. And I remember my co-founder or CEO threw his hands up in the air and said, screw the backlog. I don't want to talk about the backlog. What do we really have to do here? We have to help people sell. And so from that day forth, that was back in the spring, we embarked on trying to put together a bunch of research and really dig into the people that we knew and find out what they're doing. How are they pricing things? How are they packaging things? What are their churn rates? And what's contributing to things like churn and growth? And so we embarked on that. First off, what is the opportunity in front of us? We know that all of the growth in local is coming from digital. Now, we have this conversation a lot because a lot of the companies that we work with are in the traditional media space. By the way, is there anyone here from an agency, from a traditional media company? Radio, yeah, newspaper? Okay, great. So we work with radio, TV, IYP, and then a lot of pure play digital, and smaller, medium-sized, and larger agencies. And a lot of the traditional media companies are really starting to latch onto this and understand that all of the growth is coming in digital and they're throwing into it. And I think that the biggest opportunity for the people in this room is to understand that you are the biggest threat to those media companies. They all compete with each other, newspapers, the IYP, the radio, but they don't think about each other as much as they worry about local independent agencies that can service the customers better than they can. What's the challenge in front of us is this space. This is an incredibly complex and crowded space, and it's only getting more crowded and more competitive. How many people in this room feel competitive pressure? Anybody? And it's growing. It's growing. So we have the pure play digital companies like the Reach Locals, the Yodels, the Web.coms that are growing. You have the newspaper groups, Gannett, McClatchy, Media News Group, companies like Gatehouse Media that have created Propel Marketing and realized that they really have to transform their business model and dive into digital and not go half-assed by trying to sell digital through their legacy sales forces. They have a completely separate digital team. And that presents a threat to the people in this room, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the biggest opportunity in front of you guys and how to compete with that. Also, radio is getting into it. Radio hasn't even thought about digital over the last few years, but now this year, we're seeing companies like Beasley and Town Square, Clear Channel, Entercom throwing big time into the local space, selling digital products. The search engines are putting more effort into it, and you're seeing new entrants like GoDaddy throwing a lot of money into local. So lastly, the urgency. How are we thinking about market share? 7 times, that is the number of times better your product has to be if you're trying to displace an incumbent. So what that means is that if somebody else gets to a customer before you do, and they put a product in their hands, and you have a similar product and you want to dislodge your competition out of there, you have to come with a solution that is almost 7 times better than that incumbent solution because of the cost of switching and the time of switching. And so time to market and having conversations with the maximum number of SMBs possible is critical to your success in this growing market and all the competition in the space. So first off, before I get going here, I'm going to talk about 3 seemingly unrelated stories, and then I'm going to reference back to them as we go through the talk here. So first, seemingly unconnected story to this talk. The gentleman on the far left in this picture is one of the co-founders and CEO Vendasta. And this picture was taken in the late 80s, and he had a computer retailing operation up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And so he sold computers. And as a local entrepreneur, he was paying himself about $40,000 a year. He was spending $20,000 every single week on advertising. So that would get him one full-page ad in the local newspaper. So you can imagine, with the disparity in the amount he was paying in advertising in proportion to the amount he was paying himself, gave himself an incredible amount of heartburn every single week. And so he would ask everybody that he saw, did you see my ad? Did you see my ad? Did you see my ad? And he got a lot of no's. But when he did get a yes, the conversation went like this. Yeah, I did see your ad. I've been looking for a computer. And he started to realize that all the people that are seeing his advertising are people that are interested and they're ready for that type of solution. People that aren't interested in computers at the time do not see the advertising. And you can relate to this too, just going and buying a car. I recently bought a Volvo XC60. I'd never seen any of them on the street. Maybe one or two, but I test drove one, fell in love with it, bought it, and now I recognize Volvo XC60s. Everywhere that I go, I see them. The same with advertising. So I'm going to leave that story right there. We'll come back to it. Second, seemingly unrelated story to the rest of this talk is about this guy. So this is me back in 2002. And on this weekend, I was in the middle of jobs and really changing what I was doing. I had a website business on the side. I had my own career site, and then I was in a real estate property management development, and I was changing careers. And I had just received 2 job offers. And one was from Merck Frost to go out and sell drugs. And who doesn't want to sell drugs? That seems like a good gig. I had some friends that were in the space and working for Merck up in Edmonton, and he said, all you have to do is take doctors golfing every weekend, and you'll be making about $100K inside of after your first year. I said, great, that sounds like an awesome gig. Who doesn't want to do that? My second job offer was from a company called Point 2 Technologies. And my friend was a CTO there, and he introduced me to the CEO. They gave me a job offer, about half the money of Merck Frost. But what they were doing was something a bit in my space. I had a lot of background in SEO and SEM, writing copy and marketing on the web with my career site, and I had the background in real estate, and they were building a real estate platform. But I didn't know much about software development, so it scared me a lot. But I decided, who doesn't want to work in real estate? Like, what a cool industry. Who else in this world do you know that has taglines behind their name? Like this guy, Dare a Day, what a difference a day makes. Or this guy, Don Fry, what a guy. Or how about Scott Geller, the home seller? I want to work with him. I had a lot of taglines for this guy, but I couldn't publish any of them. So this is a story about Point 2 Technologies. We entered the space back in 2002. If you remember the website business back then, if you wanted a website, you would hire a webmaster. Remember those guys? And you'd go and they'd build you a website, and you'd pay them $20,000. And then anytime you wanted anything changed in your website, you'd call up your webmaster, he'd make a change to it and sell you an invoice for $500 to make a little change to the copy on the front page of the site. It was big business. They created a SaaS platform that would allow realtors to completely control the website themselves, log in, make changes. And we were going to deliver a free product to the industry. And so we were good students. We read Seth Godin's The Idea Virus. We read Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point. And so we knew that we needed sneezers and mavens to mix the terminology from the 2 books. And so what we did is we embarked on finding 100 of the top realtors throughout North America. And we built a fantastic website for them using our platform. They looked dynamite. We called them up on the phone. We said, you know, we've built this. We've got this brand new technology. We've built this great looking site for you. It builds brochures for you in the back end. It tracks prospects. It profiles them. It's everything that your current site isn't, and I want to give it to you for free. And out of 100 phone calls, you know how many I gave away? Anyone want to take a guess? 3. That's the exact number. I was able to give away 3. So I went back to my office one day, and I put my head in my hands, and I said, oh my God, I'm so going to get fired. I can't even give this shit away. And I was wishing I went to Merck Frost at the time. But Cooler heads prevailed. And we sat down and we figured, look, the marketplace is 1.2 million realtors in the US. And we went and we were creative, so we found all of their email addresses through certain means, and we started email marketing to them. And at first, we were able to get 5 signups a week, and then we got 10 signups a week, and then we got 20 signups a week, and then 50. And then we started getting 10 a day, 20 a day, 50 a day, then 100 a day. And by 2007, we had 165,000 realtors in 84 countries on the platform. And we initially started out with a free product. We sold a professional and a premium product priced at $39.95 and then a $99.95. On top of that, we were able to sell domains. We were able to sell paid advertising. We were able to sell premium placement on our own marketplace that we were able to build. We had a referral network that they paid to join. So we were able to create a whole bunch of different profit centers that we could branch out and add value from this initial free offering. And we gained an incredible amount of market share. And so the thing that we learned when we were email marketing, before I jump to the next story, was that as we email marketed to people, a lot of the realtors that we were emailing tens, hundreds of thousands of realtors. A lot of them didn't see the messages that we were sending because they weren't interested in the website at the time. They had a thriving business, or maybe they didn't have a thriving business, but the website wasn't a big problem to them, and it wasn't top of mind. But when our messages did hit them, when they were ready to buy, they came and they signed up. And we made sure that we got in front of as many people as we could at the time. Now, that was a different way of marketing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's the way that we thought about market share. So, third, seemingly unrelated story is about this gentleman. His name's Chip Perry. And he was the founder and CEO of Auto Trader. Had a very, very similar approach that we had to point to, except that he had much greater success on a much grander scale. Back in 1997, he was commissioned by Cox Enterprises to destroy the classified model in the auto vertical. And so he set out to do that, and he had an incredible asset back then. He had all of the inventory from the print publications, the trader print publications that are throughout the country. So he embarked on the arduous task to aggregate all of that content. And he took the content and he built a marketplace. And he positioned it as a free service to all of the dealers throughout North America to drive eyeballs to them. Now, he built something of value, of course, for himself. He built a very valuable marketplace. But he positioned it as a free product. His very first upgraded or pay product was at $49.95 a month. That's where he started from the free product. Fast forward to the beginning of 2012, from 1997, they reached over $1 billion in revenue. He had over 40,000 subscribers, less than a 2% churn rate. And his average revenue per user had grown from a free product to a $49.95 product to, in 2012, average revenue per user, $2,400 a month. And so I think that it shows the power of having a very focused strategy and also the power of having attacking the marketplace by having as many conversations and adding value to as many people as possible. So how do we achieve a 10x increase in our digital revenue growth and our digital strategies? Most people in this room probably can't even think of that right now. Seriously. So market share, the first one. How are we thinking about market share? When we embarked on this research, we took a look at a little over 350 different agencies, and again, those were across all sorts of different verticals. And so those were agencies from newspaper companies, IYP, radio, some TV, a lot of pure play digital companies. So we had smaller agencies, medium-sized, and larger agencies. So there's a big swath. And a lot of different business models there, and so there's a lot of disparity in the results. But on average, across 350, there's a lot of them had a 5 to 10% penetration rate of providing digital products to their customers. So these are products, and when I refer to digital here, I'm talking about generating monthly recurring revenue from a digital product. And so that was a huge missed opportunity from traditional media companies that are trying to get into the digital agency game. what is some of the opportunities being missed here? We know that there's a 60 to 70% probability of selling to an existing customer. It's much, much greater than trying to land a new customer. Yet we saw a lot of companies going and trying to attract new customers through traditional selling techniques. And so one thing I want people in this room to think about is how are you thinking about market share? How are you thinking about going and talking to your audience, and how big is the audience that you're starting to talk to right now? Remember back a few slides ago that how critical it is to be the first in the market to be providing a product, because it's 7 times more difficult to get something into the hands of someone that already has a solution. And there's a lot of people starting to have these conversations with SMBs and providing different types of digital products. Number 2, let them buy when they're ready. Remember back when Brendan was in his computer store, he found that people saw his advertising when they were ready. At point 2, we found that people subscribed and went and started playing around with our free site tool when they were ready. It was very, very difficult to force them to. It was even difficult to give something away when it wasn't top of mind or it just wasn't something that they were interested in at the time. And so we know a few things. So these are some numbers from BIA Kelsey, and I think it's applicable to all types of digital, not just digital ad sales. We know that 61% of them feel like DIY solutions are very, very important to them, although we know, don't we, that SMBs actually won't use digital products themselves. A lot of them that they'll say they want them, but they won't actually engage with them. Another stat that goes along with this slide is Opus Research came out last year, and they indicated that the preferred method of communication for SMBs, how they prefer to be pitched, 68% of them said via email. So think about how we can get in front of them, what types of communications that we can do, and how can we get something in their hands that they can use for free? How many people saw the Infusionsoft talk the other day? And the talk about how we can give people something of value for free, and we can start educating them. We can provide a valuable resource. Can we provide something that they can't get anywhere else? HubSpot, for example, has a free marketing grader. How many people use a HubSpot website grader? It is one of the most powerful lead generation tools that HubSpot has, and has been for a very long time. We've created a market assessment report very similar to that. See the same sort of things. Email marketing has changed dramatically from back in our days of email marketing at point 2. Back then, when we were doing traditional, when we were just blanketing the industry with something that we thought was relevant at the time, we'd be happy if we saw a 3% open rate in those emails, and we saw very low click-through rates, especially when you don't have a relationship with these companies. But today, if you have a relationship with people and you can provide them something for free, you can establish some sort of rapport in that way, and then you can provide them something that's relevant and timely and of value, something that they can't get anywhere else, you can have an astronomical increase in the effectiveness of email marketing. And we started doing this, investigating with the market assessment reports several months ago. And we instantly saw 21% open rates, 10% click-through rates, higher than anything we saw before. As we iterated on that, we've seen open rates now in excess of 50% and click-through rates in excess of 75%. If you can provide them something of value that's about their business that no one else is providing them. Next, sales approaches. A lot of digital agencies have a number of solutions in their portfolio. And so my question is, how are you taking those to market, and how are you starting to initiate a conversation with your sales team? When we went into a lot of traditional media companies and we looked at their sales force, we would do in-market training with their sales teams. Instantly, by providing them with a very simple solution and a very simple set of discussion points that they can have, we showed them how to have a consultative approach to their discussions with SMBs. Across every single market, we'd have a minimum of 115% increase in the closing rate of the salespeople in those markets, just by simplifying the story that we're telling them. Now, we can improve on that as we provide better, more relevant and valuable information to the businesses themselves, information about their businesses if you can come across as the expert. After all, the goal here is to become the digital agency of record, because if you can become the digital agency of record, you become part of their marketing department. And if you're part of the marketing department manages the marketing budget, right? And so here are some things that we can discuss with the businesses that are very specific to their experience. What are people saying about them? What is their site mobile ready? What does their social media footprint look like? And how does that compare to other people in the industry? What are other SMBs doing that they're not doing? What is their competition doing? What other types of things can you have when you sit down and have a relevant, valuable discussion with that business? Lastly, I wanted to talk about churn because it was the biggest Achilles heel to these 350 different agencies that we were working with. We would see churn rates in some of the agencies up around 100%. They would churn 100% of their customers every single year. So people in this room, the average, by the way, the average churn rate across 350, 30% year over year. So people in this room, how many people are under 30% in a churn rate? How many people are over? Over? So how many people are under 20%? Under 10%? So under 20%, those are fantastic numbers, and it points to some of the advantage that I was talking about a little bit about that you have over a lot of traditional media companies. The reach locals and the yodels in the space, you'll see that they've traditionally had Ad Taxi too, Gannett's Geodigital, have traditionally had very high price points. They bundle their digital products with traditional print properties, and it's one of the leading contributors to churn for those types of companies, because when they bundle the digital package with their traditional media buys and the media buy churns out or they stop the campaigns, some of them are taking away the digital bundle. It all goes away as a bundle. And so they're losing the opportunity to continue to have that digital conversation with the business and build on it. Just like we did at point 2 with the real estate websites, as long as they were using a free website, it gave us the opportunity to maybe upgrade them to a professional package. If they didn't do that, maybe we could sell them some paid search to drive eyeballs. If that didn't work, maybe we could sell them premium placement on our own portal. We could sell them a domain to help improve the stickiness. Other challenges that we saw across all of these agencies was price to performance. This is an Achilles heel of a lot of the traditional companies that we're looking at. Is they're trying to replace the print dollars to what they perceive to be digital dimes. They would always sell their print media properties and products at a very, very high price. And the reason why they've struggled to get into digital is because their sales model is upside down. Salespeople don't make anything by selling a $49 package. They don't think about the long-term opportunity to sell and build on that and add managed services around it. And if the salespeople don't make any money, then the organization doesn't grow their digital. And so they take foundational digital products like reputation management and presence management, simple social tools that should be sold at a lower price, and they were trying to sell them for $500 a month. Ultimately, they'd churn out. And then lastly is the quality of the relationship. And I think that a lot of the people in this room, if you can create a tighter relationship with your customers, and you've got the opportunity to do that, as these bigger media companies get into the game and are selling into, they're building bigger call centers. This is the way that they're changing their models. You've got an opportunity to have a better relationship and ultimately much better impacts or much better numbers when it comes to churn. If you manage churn and you can reduce, we see in a lot of cases now, it depends on the pricing of your package, but you can reduce or increase your profitability anywhere from 5 to almost double it with a 5% reduction in churn. So I want to go through some numbers here just to show that you can have a big impact by focusing on just a number of things. So I'm going to throw a bunch of numbers here. I don't want to start going starry-eyed when I throw out all the stats and whatnot. The important thing is to see the amount of change as we just think about market share, churn, and our sales approach. So across 350 different media companies, average company grew about 30% in the year. That was the average growth rate for these, for all of the agencies that we're working with. It was also the exact same number for the churn rate. So the average growth rate was 30%. They would have about a 5% penetration rate into their market. Now, this is applicable to people here. If you're not selling traditional print properties, think about the number of people that you're touching right now. I was struck by the Infusionsoft talk. There's a lot of people that throw away leads, and we don't continue to cultivate them and nurture them and provide something of value to them. And so I want you to think about how can you provide something of value to a much greater number, and think about market share. So this is what we're going to do here. So if the average company was growing by 30%, I'm just going to start with a number. We're going to say that they started with 264 accounts. So they would grow to 346. That's a 30% growth rate. At the end of the year, they'd grow to 346 accounts. So first off, we address the churn rate, and we want to reduce our average churn from 30% down to, say, 10%. That would add an additional 66 accounts that we have at the end of the year. Now, we're going to think about market share. How many people can we provide something of value to and have a much greater number of discussions out there? For traditional media companies, they can look at their entire customer base that they're not doing, that they've had in the past and that they currently have. And if they're only selling to 5 to 10% of it, their entire network that they could be talking to is 5,000 different businesses. You could do the same by providing free resources and addressing leads that you generated in the past that you haven't done anything with or they haven't converted now. So if we start email marketing to them and we start providing something of value that they can't get anywhere else and something relevant to their business, with the results that we saw in our tests, now remember, I saw 50% open rates and 75% click-through rates in one campaign. Now if we say, all I want to do, my goal is very modest, all I want to do is engage 25% of those over the year. And of those 25%, which would be 1,200 of these, I want to convert 18% of those. So out of the 5,000, I'm going to be converting about 3% every single month. That's sort of a DIY. And when I say DIY sign up, I just want them really to hold up their hand, reach out to me and say, hey, I'm interested. If we do that and we have those type of conversion rates across the year, which is extremely modest, this agency would add an extra 250 accounts. Now if we sold to just to hot leads, now if we took our sales force and we armed them, we provided a very simple story to them. We engaged in consultative sales. And then we only engaged leads when they're ready to buy. We thought, remember back to the point 2 story when we're email marketing to people. It was really, really hard to give away products to people that weren't ready because it was time for them, time that they didn't have to invest in that conversation right now. If we look at our email marketing and we can identify people that are clicking through, that are opening their emails and they're engaging over time, we can see the ones that are ready, and then we can just focus our sales efforts on those with a very simple story. So across these different agencies, 350 of them, the average closing rate was 5% on their telesales. And so if we take that 5% and we double it to 11%, this agency would add an extra 450 accounts by the end of the year. And so we've taken that, and what you have is you're ending the year rather than 325 accounts at the end of the year, and actually that's a typo, it should have been 346. That old growth rate was 30%. Now this agency, by thinking of market share and their sales approach and the email marketing, having more conversations and reducing churn by a little bit, they've hit a 321% growth rate, and they've ended the year with 1,100 accounts instead of 346. And then that's a 10x increase by just focusing on a couple of different things, a couple of small things. Before I wrap up the conclusion of this, I just want to talk about a really quick case study that we did, and we rolled out a program with an agency up in Tacoma, Washington. Brought in a webinar, 140 businesses. We gave them a talk. Then we followed up with all the businesses after the webinar with an email campaign. We're able to reach 127 of them through email. This agency, in 2 weeks, closed 18% of them. They're expecting to close another 20% of them, so they think they'll close about 40% over time. And in the 2-week campaign, with just the 18% close rate, they added $141,000 of business with this process. So to wrap up, I just want to leave with one little quick story. So remember I said back in 2002 I had joined Point 2. Back in 2004, I was at a lake and I was in a very similar type of setting. I was sitting in a boat and I got a phone call. And the phone call, my dad had a heart attack. And so this is 10 years ago, and I jumped in my car and I headed back to where I was from. I grew up in a town called Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. And I was on my way back, and I got a phone call halfway back, and I knew what it was. My father had passed. And when I got that news, two things crossed my mind. The first thing, of course, was all the awesome, wonderful memories of Dad taking me to hockey practice in the morning. And those are ones I'll never, ever forget. The second thing that went through my mind as I was driving down the highway was a conversation that I had with him when I was sitting in that boat back in 2002 and struggling with whether to go to Merck Frost or Point 2, because there was a big difference. Point 2 had about half of the salary, and I didn't know anything about software development, so I was kind of scared to jump into it at the time. And so I called Dad and I had a conversation with him. I don't know what to do. I kind of want to go with Point 2, but it seems like a silly thing for me to do, especially given the money. And he said to me, first off, look at where the opportunity is, and over the next couple of years, which job presents the biggest opportunity, and what area is going to grow the quickest. Once you do that, I think it'll become clear, and then you just have to realize you have to figure out what the few most important things to do are to make you successful, and you're smart, and you can do that. And once you figure out just a few things that you need to focus on to be successful, you'll find success, and it'll be fun, and you know what? It'll be a lot easier than you think. And so what I wanted to leave this crowd with is that if you you're thinking about your business growth, there's a lot of different things that are taking your time, running your business and marketing your business and servicing your customers. But if you sit back and think about growth and think about what are the most important things that can impact my growth, and we touched on a few of them here, thinking about what's impacting your churn. How are you thinking about market share? How are you going to capture a greater percent of market share and get into businesses before other people are having discussions with them? And how can I impact the effectiveness of my sales team? If you can find the right things to do that are going to create a substantial business, substantial impact on your growth, you're going to find success. You're going to have a lot of fun, and you know what? It's going to be a lot easier than you think. And that's what I want to leave you with.
Jeff, you want to take any questions? Anybody may have a question for Jeff?
Any questions?
Raise your hand, and we'll give you guys the mic. We got one right over there.
That was really, really great, Jeff. Could you show us again that slide that has the basic components of, that one, exactly. Thanks very much. Really outstanding.
Great. Thanks. Are these being made available later?
Yes,
Yeah,
they'll
okay,
actually will
great.
be made available. You guys will
Great.
get all those slides. All right, let's give
Thanks
another
a lot,
warm round of applause for Jeff Tomlin. All right, so what right now we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of a break. It's for about 25 minutes. Get out there, talk to the vendors, talk to Jeff. He actually is a vendor here as well with Vendasta back in the corner. And then we're going to be back in our seats for our keynote presentation that will start promptly at 11, so be back in your seats at 10:55. We'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Be sure if you're sitting next to someone that you have not met with, talk to them right now during this break, or if you're sitting next to someone you saw this morning or yesterday, switch it up and let's do a little bit more networking today. We'll see you guys in about 20 minutes.